So we've got a 23 Chevy Silverado diesel sitting here running this morning, and I wanted to look at a little bit of injector data to kind of give you an idea of some things that you can look at when you have a truck that comes in that's running bad. So we're going to look at injector balance rates, injector timing, and our injector command, and kind of talk a little bit about how that works. So got the truck sitting here running right now. The injector on time measured in milliseconds, you can see right here for all 8 injectors. We're about range anywhere from about 1.88, 1.87 to 2.04 milliseconds. I'm at idle, so timing is at 0 degrees. And my balance rates are all negative 0.8 millimeters cubed. Okay, so if I have a diesel truck that comes in and it's running bad, maybe it's got misfires on certain cylinders, which some of the newer diesels will actually set misfire DPCs. In the past, in the early days of Duramax, we really didn't have that luxury. So we'd look at injector balance rates. Well, I want you to think of injector balance rates like fuel trim, okay? Like a fuel trim on a gas engine. The more negative the balance rate on that injector is, or the more negative that fuel trim number is on that gas engine, we're taking fuel away, right? So let's just say, as an example, we'll just highlight injector 5 here. Let's say injector 5 balance rate is negative 6.3. I'm probably going to go to cylinder 5 and do a quick visual inspection on that fuel injector, and then if I have to remove it, I'm going to remove it and replace it and see if that corrects my problem. What that would be telling me, if it was at a negative 6.3, is that the ECM is trying to throttle that injector back, so that injector is probably stuck open to a certain degree, has some debris in it, it's putting too much fuel into that cylinder. Well, as time went on, in 2018 they added these numbers for us, which is going to be our injector timing numbers. You can see all 8 of my injectors. There's injector 8 timing, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What do the timing numbers mean? Well, we started doing something in 2018 that General Motors with their Duramax diesels had not done before. We started doing something called small quantity adjustment. So typically on a diesel engine, when you decelerate, you go into a fuel cutoff mode. Injectors are not on. Well, to gain more precise control over the fuel system and to reduce emissions, as we decelerate, the engine control module will randomly turn on fuel injectors and give it 2 or 3 little pilot injections, so these tiny little pulses of fuel, and it looks at the speed of the crankshaft measured by the RPM reading from the crankshaft position sensor. Okay, so the engine control module is going to say, okay, I expect the crankshaft to be rotating, I'm just going to throw some numbers out here, at 1750 RPM. Then it'll turn on, say it turns on injector 5, and it goes tap, 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 gives it a little bit of fuel, and it looks at what the crankshaft speed actually is. If the crankshaft speed matches what it thinks it should be, that injector timing is good. If the crankshaft is going too fast or too slow, it's going to adjust the timing that you see here of the fuel injector. So what does this mean? Negative numbers on injector timing means how many degrees before or how many degrees after top dead center we are injecting fuel. So a negative number means we're injecting fuel after top dead center of the piston relative to the cylinder or to the injector that we're looking at. And you know, we're using number 5 as an example here. Positive numbers on injector timing means we're injecting fuel before top dead center. So think of it like timing advance and retard on a gas engine, okay? If we need to speed up or slow down the crankshaft, those injector timing numbers are going to adjust accordingly, either before or after top dead center. Remember, negative numbers, we're injecting fuel after top dead center. Positive numbers, we're injecting fuel before top dead center. Okay. We get up into the double digits on some of these, we have a problem. This truck, it's 3 years old now. It's learned the injectors, so you can see our timing numbers at idle are close to 0. Some of the things that can affect these injector timing numbers, some of the things that I've experienced, that I've seen: dirty air, dirty fuel. Okay. Some of you guys out there to work on Duramaxes know that the manifold pressure sensor, we have a lot of issues with soot buildup in that sensor, and that will skew these numbers that you're looking at on the screen right now. Something you always need to check on a modern day Duramax is to pull the map sensor, the manifold pressure sensor out, and see if it's all plugged up. If it is all plugged up, you might either clean it if it can be cleaned, and they can successfully be cleaned if they're not damaged, or put a new one in there and do all your resets. And we're going to talk about our resets here in a minute and see if your numbers return to normal. I had one recently. These numbers were way off on it. It's a 24 GMC Sierra 3/4 ton truck. These numbers were way off, and we ended up having some further damage to this truck. But I'm gonna tell you what, the first thing I noticed when I opened the hood on this truck is somebody put an air filter in it, and 2 of the bolts that sealed the air box were missing, which meant I had an unmetered air leak skewing these numbers, these injector timing numbers, and we were not dosing this engine with fuel in the correct way. And it ended up going on that way for so long that it actually plugged up the diesel particulate filter on this truck. So just something as small as an air box not being sealed properly caused, several $1,000s worth of damage to this truck. So ultimately we had to put a diesel particulate filter on it. Okay, so we talked about our injector balance rates and how we can use that similar to fuel trim on a gas engine. We talked about our injector timing numbers and what they mean when they go negative and when they go positive. So again, on the injector timing, you start seeing these things in the double digits, we have a problem. And we're going to have to start looking for something that's causing these injector timing numbers to be skewed. Okay? Let's look at our injector command. So you're looking at your injector on time. We'll just highlight cylinder 6 here. Injector on time. We have this on gas engines we've had for years. How long we turn the injector on measured in milliseconds. So again, if I have an engine that's not performing correctly, or I have maybe a fuel injector that's not performing correctly, compare the on time of the affected cylinder, or pull up your injector on time of all 8 of your fuel injectors and compare them one to another, because they should be very, very close. I mean, you see here on the screen, we're not varying by more than about 0.2 milliseconds from one injector to the next. But what if I had a cylinder that wasn't contributing because I had an injector that's maybe stopped up, maybe the little pintle inside the injector or the piston inside the injector was stuck and it wouldn't open and inject enough fuel. You would probably see that in the injector on times. The ECM is going to command that injector to stay on longer to try to get it to perform better. Okay, so some of the things that are going to affect these numbers. The MAP sensor, the manifold pressure sensor, will affect these numbers. An EGR valve that's not opening and closing the right way will affect these numbers. Dirty air, so either the air filter hasn't been changed in a very long time, or maybe since we have on these newer Duramax trucks these active hood scoops that pull a lot of the air in through the hood. I see a lot of the filters get wet. That skews the air or changes the airflow across the mass airflow sensor. That will affect these numbers. A cheap aftermarket air filter like a Wix or a Fram air filter, just as an example, will affect these numbers. Anything that's affecting the operation of the crankshaft position sensor, where the engine control module is not getting a clean reading of the RPMs of the crankshaft, will affect these numbers. And a whole number of things can throw these numbers off, so we have to do some deep diagnosis on this. And don't forget about fuel. We've talked about that in other videos. what is the quality of the fuel. Always go to your water and fuel separator and pull a sample and do some testing on that diesel fuel to see if it's actually good, clean fuel or not. And don't forget too, you will have those customers who bring their trucks in that either are not running or not running well, and they knew that they put some junk in the fuel or some junk fuel in the tank, and they had somebody drain it and clean it and put it all back together and bring it to you with fresh filters in it, hoping that they can still get that job covered under warranty if it's a low mileage truck. So all kinds of crazy stuff, takes place in the industry where people try to cover up what they've done to their vehicles. So that's always a factor. Sometimes you have to almost be like a private investigator to figure out what's happened to the particular truck that you're working on. So let's say we had some bad fuel injectors, okay? Well, maybe we had a contaminated fuel system, and maybe it wasn't water or diesel exhaust fluid, so maybe we didn't have to replace the entire fuel system. Maybe we just had some weird additive in a diesel fuel. Maybe they were running R99 diesel, that renewable garbage they sell out on the West Coast, and it affected the way everything operated. Maybe it did take out a couple of injectors and I had to replace them. Well, so I go throw my injectors in and I've drained the tank, I've flushed it out real good, I got good filters in it, nice clean number 2 diesel, and I start it up and it still runs bad. I've cleared DTCs, tried driving it, still misfires. My numbers on my injector still don't look good. What did I miss? Well, maybe you didn't miss anything. There's resets on diesels that you have to do. So let's take a look at those now. So we're going to go into our reset information and see what we would need to reset if we replaced 1 or 2 or maybe even all of the fuel injectors. So configuration reset functions. So you need to make sure that you have a scan tool, obviously, that will allow you to do this. One of the things I'm going to have to do when I replace those injectors is I'm going to have to record the numbers that are on the tops of the injectors, right? Way back in the day, you open a box with a new fuel injector in it, they had a little sticker in it that had the injector flow rate numbers on it, on the sticker itself. And they were really good to us because it had little bubbles on it where you could identify what cylinder you put that injector in, and I could go back and program it later. Well, those days are over. I would say probably get a QR code reader app on your phone and scan the QR code on top of the injector, and you'll see your flow rate number come up for your fuel injector, and just make a note of which cylinder you put it in, which location it's in, and program it. If I don't program the injector, here's what we're doing. We're telling the engine control module, hey, engine control module, this is the flow rate of this new injector. So what that does is that tells the ECM, hey, we've got a new injector in the cylinder, this is its flow rate, this is where it's calibrated. It data dumps all the previous information for the old injector that you removed, it installs the new information, then it can go learn that injector. Without doing that, eventually I'm probably going to have a check engine light and the thing's not going to run right, because it's going to be trying to control the fuel injector using old information. And that the injector you put in may be drastically different than the ones you took out, okay? So there's one thing I'm gonna have to do, but let's look at our reset functions and let's see what we have available to us. So anytime I change anything in the fuel system, here's some things I'm going to want to do, and this is just me personally, some things I would do. I would do my fuel trim reset, which we're actually not gonna do on this truck because there's nothing wrong with it. And it's already learned its fuel injectors and it runs really well. I would do my fuel trim reset. I would do my fuel system adaptation reset. This one right here. If I click on it, it's going to take me straight into it. So let me back out. Here's another very important one right here. Fuel injection small quantity data reset. Okay, I need to do that because I need to be able to relearn small quantity adjustment rates, which affects my injector timing numbers. So just a couple of real quick things about diesel fuel injectors, some things that may help you diagnose these trucks, some data that you can look at. Older trucks, we get back into like a, let's say, Duramax came out in GM trucks in 2011. Okay, you're working on a 2011, 2012 model truck. You don't have all this really cool data that you can look at. You do have injector balance rates, but it's very, very limited because as soon as you hit roughly 1100 RPMs, they're frozen. You can't read them anymore. On these newer trucks, they still freeze at higher RPMs, but you get a little bit more wiggle room. It's not 1100 like it used to be, but just a couple things. Hope that helps out. Hope it makes sense, and hopefully this will help you diagnose some diesel engine performance problems in the future. Take care.